This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Lack of honesty breeds suspicion, which is a bottomless pit that can go on forever. Going down that route is a self-fulfilling prophecy rooted in the worst choice imaginable. There is no other perpetrator to excuse this bad behavior other than the image in the mirror. Once we fall, the climb up can seem overwhelming. The only way out is to build a ladder that is completely constructed of trust. Perpetuating the deceit to try and overcome this descent only accelerates the drop. Trust is a grace that is difficult to receive, but very easy to lose. Often never recoverable once the web of lies begins spinning like a spider's web. All the tools to recover your integrity reside within ourselves. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. I've been waiting for this one for a while, okay? Ever since we scheduled this, I met this guy online, and it wasn't a dating app. I met this guy online, Eric Perluke, but you know him as Loomis. And tonight I bring Eric in here to talk about the suffering of trust. So Eric has fell down that rabbit hole and he had to work his way back and earn that trust back. Eric, it's a pleasure to have you in here. It really is. I'm so excited for tonight.
I mean, the pleasure's all mine. You came on my show, and I mean, I told you I seen you in a studio 3 years ago, and I just remembered how genuine though you were, and then I saw you with Anthony Ruggiano on Instagram, and I had to reach out to you. Like, you know, I'm a very good judge of character, so I reached out to you, and it's, you know, sobriety's, you know, it's quite amazing, because when I first saw you, it was right in the beginning, but like, you know, you look 3.5 years later, and now I'm sitting in this studio, so it's crazy.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about how we got connected, why we got connected, and what happened afterwards. But before I do that, I want to throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police. We certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the boys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. You won't be sorry. So, Eric, you've watched a couple shows.
Yes.
Each week, we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from Shay Fabulous. How does your addictive personality play a positive role in your current life? You know, this show is big about, you know, we all trip, we all fall, but if we don't learn anything from trying to pick ourselves up, it's really a wasted opportunity. That's at the end of every single show. So your addictive personality, I'm sure there's benefits to your current life.
Without a doubt. The best I could equate it to is if anyone's out there who's an addict, you know, we have to really work hard when we lose all of our money or whatever to try and use all our energy just to get that feeling, you know, whether it's booze, whether it's a drug or whatever. And I always had that fire in my belly. But now, though, that I don't do, though, the booze or the drugs, that fire, Kevin, I'll be laying down in my bed. I'm like, I'm just going to relax and watch something. I can't. There's just a fire in me that just keeps pushing me though forward and forward. So that energy that I had to, you know, to go and cop whatever I needed back in those days is all put into something positive. And that's where the content though comes in. And there's no better high than helping others and, you know, giving that message out there.
Well, it's like a thirst. You know, you have this. So as an addict, and I'm recovering alcoholic, you have this big giant hole that sits inside of you, okay? And you're always trying to fill that hole, and you're filling that hole with you're looking for love in all the wrong places, as Johnny Lee says. But when you find something that finally fills that hole, and it's never the drug or the quick fix or any of that stuff, it's something much more fulfilling. So addictive personalities. My addictive personality plays into my work ethic, okay? I am super focused. I'm always hyper-focused on whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm into, and I give 150% of whatever I put into it. But aside from that, I gravitate to people with an addictive personality. Former addicts, recovering addicts. I gravitate towards those people because if you were that focused on that bad behavior, can you imagine how great you would be if you put that focus in on something positive? You're unstoppable at that point. So I will always gravitate towards those people with a little junk in the past, because when you come on the other side of it, you know what it took. You know that behavior that took you down the rabbit hole, and that same behavior could reach you to the top of the mountain.
It's not easy getting sober.
No, it's tough.
You get through that, and I mean, you really get through that where you could be in the present or whatever. I truly believe you could do anything you put your mind to.
When you feel that sickness of not having something, oof. So Shay Fabulous, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will definitely try to get them on the air. So before we get into how you grew up, let's talk a little bit about our initial interaction. All right. So you reached out to me on Instagram, I believe it was.
Correct.
And you asked me if I'd be interested in coming on the Loomis show.
Mm.
Now, Zoom's not my favorite, okay? And because it's not that I dislike it, I just feel like it's a little bit more hollow. That's why I choose not to do Zoom on the show. But there was something about you, and I still can't put my finger on it, why. It made my ears perk up, okay? And I just said, And then I just looked at you a little bit, and I said, let's have a discussion, right? We got on the phone, and I said, you know what? And I trust my gut. Like, I've learned that over time. I didn't have to force it. I just, I had a good feeling. So I said, you know what? This is something that I want to pursue, because I don't do a lot of Zoom podcasts anymore. If it's a friend, yes. But we didn't know each other. Something in my gut told me you were a decent guy. You were real. You were authentic. And my gut didn't prove me wrong, because since we did the recording of your show, we've talked many times. We've bounced ideas off of each other. And when the show came out, I've never seen anybody put so much work into a show as you did. So I have to give you credit on that.
Well, I have to thank you a lot. And we did it on Friday, and I released it on Sunday. And that's where who asked that question, that fire just comes from. That addictive personality that's why I was all over that. And I believe, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but you were like, wow, I couldn't believe that you got that done.
Well, I think it's insane. The timeline was absolutely crazy. It's breakneck speed.
Well, it's, you got to fill in, that time for what I used to do. You got to change old habits, and by creating stuff. And I'm a musician at heart too. So I always loved creating. And then once I got sober, it's just, I have to be creating.
So being a creative is interesting, because being creative, it doesn't come all the time, but when it comes, you have to capitalize on those times when you're creative. So like, there'll be times when I get an idea and I got to write it down. So it gives me the freedom to forget it. I write it down and I readdress it at a later time. And people don't really understand that. People think you're taking time away from them. In some points you are. But at the same time, you don't want that creative spark you want to be able to nurture it so it turns into a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, Eric, why don't you tell the audience a little bit where you're from, how you grew up, and we'll start there.
All right. I was born May 13th, 1981 in a little town called Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Coal mining town. If anyone ever heard of Scranton or ever seen the show The Office, they based that off of.
Phillies used to have a minor league team played there.
The Red Barons, they were called, and now it's the Scranton. And now my Yankees moved there. And
oh God,
listen, I'm a diehard Eagles fan, but I'm a Yankee fan. I loved them since Don Mattingly before they were.
Well, he's with the Mets now, so how can you live in Pennsylvania that close to Philadelphia and not be a Phillies fan? Listen, I love the fact that you're an Eagles fan, but
it was my Uncle George who, when my parents would ever go away, I would stay with my Uncle George, and he was diehard Eagles, and that's, you're a young kid. He just had that odd impression on me, and then with he's the one. No, excuse me. He's the one that made me the Eagles fan, but my father with the Yankees all the way. So,
oof, man, you're the reverse of me. I'm a Philly fan in a New York market. You're a New York fan in a Philly market.
But let me say this. I loved them and watched them lose every year when Don Mattingly was there. We haven't, since I liked them, finally when the strike happened, we were the best team in baseball. Then, of course, the strike no hits. And then when we came in 96, we won 98, 99, 2000. Yes, but I'm not one of those guys who jumped on because of all the rings. I love Donnie baseball and, Dave Winfield back in the day.
Mattingly, I remember. I did like Mattingly. He got paid the highest contract in baseball. I think it was 85. It was like $3.1 million, which was an astronomical amount of money.
Yes.
And I remember the newspaper clipping. That's how I remember that. But it was very hard because everybody around is Philly fans, and but I do raise my kids Philly fans, so
yeah,
I can't have them be New York fans. So you grew up in this area, like normal childhood?
My childhood was, I'm going to be honest, because a lot of people always say like trauma had happened or whatever. I had a fantastic childhood. I come from a big Irish family on my mom's side. She's 100% Irish. Her mother's off the boat Irish, and just a fantastic childhood. But I had an older brother. I have an older brother, Kevin. Who right now he's actually head of the probation department in our county, in Luzerne County. So we are opposites in a way of like, I was more the wild child, and he always was the type that would like, never get in trouble. So as a little kid, looking back now, I want to punch the little punk I was in the face. I'm going to be honest with you, but I used to be like, "Oh, you like Kevin better, this and that." He was also the best athlete though to come out of our area.
And it's hard. So you talk about not having trauma. Living in the shadow of an older brother can create that stuff, and it's nobody's fault. Nobody beat you or anything like that.
No.
But that's a tough thing to live up to.
Well, that's what happened to me though, Kevin, was that my brother's name's Kevin. He was in the newspaper every day. I mean, the family's over celebrating. He's on the news every day, and it wasn't like a jealous factor. I guess maybe I just felt like I don't know. I felt very isolated, and I remember I played ball too, and I was a good ball player, but nowhere near his level. I mean, he played against Kobe Bryant, all those guys when Kobe played for Lower Merion in the Keystone games. I used to go down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to see them. And my brother has the all-time scoring record. So I was in his shadow. So when I started playing ball in high school, people would be like, "Oh, another Perluke's coming up, another Perluke." And that pressure, I was like, I can't be like my brothers.
And then when you don't perform that way, they're looking at you, "Oh, what's up with Eric? He's not." Oh, and they realize you're not your brother.
It's exactly how it was. Not to mention every single day I'd go into high school, every girl would come up to me, "Oh, I want your brother. I want your brother. I want your brother." You know what I mean? Like, okay, thanks for telling me that.
What I used to do to my brother. I'd be like, "Yeah, he's gay." He's gay. But so I run into this with my children. Okay, my oldest son is 6'5". My youngest son is not going to be as tall by any means. My oldest is super gifted in sports. My youngest is brilliant. So I just said this to them the other day, and because he lives in his brother's shadow constantly. "Oh, you're Big Pat's brother." But I looked at my son and I said, "What you're lacking in height is what you're going to make up for here. Now, height is great for sports, but your sports career is over. You're lucky if you play till 30. All right? This will last you for the rest of your life. Your brain will last you forever." So in a lot of ways, you're more advantaged. And I think that's important because I was a younger brother and I was in the shadow and stuff like this. I was better at certain things, but he was better than me at certain things. So it's important for me to build up that confidence in my younger one by saying, "No, man, up here, dude." Because think about it. So right now you're what, 44?
They're going to be 44 in a week. So yeah, 44.
Okay, so you're 44 years old. Where's that talent in baseball getting you now?
Exactly. And there's a line from Ivor the Boneless, who I love. I read old Viking stuff, though, that they say, though, the mind is a much more powerful weapon than the sword.
You're using that weapon up between your ears much more than you're using your athletic ability. So while athletic ability is good, but it's fleeting. All right, your brain lasts much longer. So in a lot of ways, you have an advantage over your brother, but it took you a long time to find that. So you're living in his shadow. How did you find acceptance?
Well, that's what I wasn't finding. I found acceptance from going down the wrong road, which was, I can remember vividly in high school, we called it the 20s, which was the second floor. You had the 10s, 20s, the 30s, and 40s at James M. Coughlin High School in Wilkes-Barre. And the 20s, the bathroom, where all the long hairs were hanging, smoking cigarettes, smoking their marijuana. So, boom, that's the route, though, that I went. And I thought that, and don't forget, now I'm a musician, too. So, I mean, I would be playing piano recitals and stuff growing up, and I want to make this clear. My parents didn't neglect me at all or anything. This was just all in my head from him. You're a little kid, so, it's not like I went through anything like terrible or crazy like others do. But in my mind, yes, I was always that kid that was in his shadow, but I was always a good musician. My parents supported me with that. They got me a piano, the whole nine. I was just able to play. So, just able to play just naturally, which was great, and then taught myself. And then would even do recitals and stuff. So I had like all of that attention, but looking back, I just went through it because I do go and see a psychiatrist now because I believe more in that. For everyone's different. People might get upset when I say this, but the AA culture, for me, I'm more of a one-on-one though type guy.
So AA for me did not, at the time I was involved in it. I didn't quite buy it. Okay, being 11 and a half years sober, I buy it now. But the AA culture is the AA program. I think it's a wonderful program, but I believe the time frame is a little short. Okay, at 11 and a half years, hey, listen, it took me 9 years to rediscover my faith, to really surrender to my higher power, which is number one. And looking at it now, okay, I see all those steps that are involved in it, but it took me a long time, not in their time frame. So that's the only problem I have with AA. But I think it's a wonderful program. You got to start somewhere.
I think it's a fantastic program, but what happens though is that it all depends on where you're going. Some people try to change little things, like like you're saying, the time frame, this and that. They try to change the original rules and like what it was really though supposed to be. I even say people who aren't even addicts though should even just do the 12 steps, take a big inventory on yourself, all that type of stuff. I agree with that 100%. And then I remember I was like, well, I'm done with the steps. Why do I got to keep going back? And Olin Morris, who I was on the phone with on the way here, he works for veterans. He's a veteran for a treatment center. He's out in Tennessee now. And he told me, he's like, you got to go back to help the newcomer. And, that's what it's all about. So I'm not knocking their message at all.
Their message is wonderful.
Certain rooms, though, were just, they teach you not to really judge and this and that. But I'd hear people like, why isn't Johnny here? Maybe he's out using, just like that type of like, I don't like that.
So the one guy you connect me with, the guy up in Canada, Bobby. Okay, I won't say his last name out of respect for him.
Great guy.
Great, awesome guy. You can listen. It was just after the show. He connected me with it, and
thank you, by the way.
Well, listen, that's so I spoke with him. All I did was speak to him, right? So he said, "How can I ever repay?" He said something like that, and I said, "You don't understand, dude. What me talking to you doesn't cost me a dime. It actually fulfills me more than you think. But I will tell you this: it's not free. Okay?" I said, "It's not free. You have to find somebody as you get further along in your journey. You have to find somebody that's in your shoes, and you have to help them. And that's how you pay it. It comes with debit, but that's how you repay it. You never repay it to me. I don't want nothing. I don't need nothing. But somebody down the line is going to need that help that you needed at that particular time. And listen, this is a very serious man. He does not need my help in any way, shape, or form, but he's going through a couple things.
I disagree, though, there. No matter how tough he is a serious man and this and that, though. But to this day, he tells me, and that blew me away when you did that, because I'm, and I could say this online, what's going on with my father with the cancer. So I was all tied up, and you just were willing to just reach out. I know you have a real busy schedule. You didn't know this guy from Adam, and you reached out to him.
What's a phone call cost?
No, I hear you, though. But he was, you really, he was so thankful. And, just that little phone call could just change. Like I even tell people, check in on your friends at times. No ulterior motive. Just say, hey, how you doing? How you been? Just little check-ins at times.
Yeah, that question, how you doing, could have them break down. I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
Loneliness, it could hit them, and you might call them at the right time when they might be suffering.
Right. And that's when we want to get, that's where the most learning happens, when you're in your lowest point. So you're in that in the 20s, like you said, that second floor bathroom. You're there with the long hairs. You're smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, was it just weed?
No, God, no. The biggest misconception, too, with making music is that, I grew up and I wanted to be a rock star watching Headbangers Ball and all that stuff back in the day. Ricky Rackman. Ricky Rackman. So I always thought that, the drug just went with that lifestyle and stuff, but it's the furthest thing, though, from the truth. It started off as marijuana, then it got, with the booze, and then marijuana, and, cocaine just naturally, though, just came with drinking. And
cocaine smells like shit.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm the type of guy. I was the type of guy. I'm going to be honest with you, and it's sad to say. I remember I walked into a party one time. There was something purple, and I went, "Where?" I did it, and then I said, "What was that?" That's how I was.
Yeah, I used to. I do that in high school. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. What did I just take?
Yeah, what did I just take? That's how I was, though. But what happened, though, was I got off of the booze in 2015. Everything was going great. And then I know I'm jumping real far ahead, though, but then, though, I got hooked, though, on fentanyl very bad during the pandemic. And that still blows my mind that I actually did that, overdosed a bunch of times. And my father found me in some bad situations. But you want to talk about suffering? That's a tough one. I lost my best friend, who was like a brother to us, the Flannery family.
But it never ends well. So this is every addict. I'm talking every single addict will say to themselves, that's not going to be me.
Oh, yeah, I can't believe it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and you think you can beat the system.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Nobody takes cocaine and says, I hope I overdose. Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
No,
I don't think anybody does that.
Yeah.
But they all try to beat the system, and it never ends well. Never.
No.
Tell me one true story of somebody who is in true addict mode that says, wow, that really worked out the way that I expected it.
And I'll give you another one. I lost at least 12 people easy and 4 very close people to what I was doing. And you would think though that would make you step back, but it doesn't when you're in that whole depth of that addiction. It doesn't.
You're in it. I know we're jumping a little forward right now because I know there's many different steps. You didn't just smoke marijuana and the next day you become a full-blown fentanyl addict.
No, that was recent.
Yeah.
Throw a little 4 years ago, but.
So what is it about the high, whether it's weed, cocaine, fentanyl, whatever it may be? What is it about the high that draws you in?
It made me feel whole. It made me feel like whatever that void that you were talking about earlier right here, it would go away. And it would give me fake confidence, I guess we could say.
I think you just described 99% of all addicts. Of why. And that's always the big question, right? Like, why? And if you're a parent watching your child go down this door, why? What gave you a good childhood? Why? And you sound like you had a great childhood. Why? Well, that's why. Because there is a hole in there that you try to fill. We see it in the police world, right? But it's a little different in the police world with it, where some of them will get hooked on drugs, but mostly what happens, and I'll tell you the steps, they figure they got this big hole, and if I become a cop, that's going to fill that hole. Guess what? Becoming a cop doesn't fill that hole. So then they get married. Well, maybe that'll fill out. Doesn't fill the hole. Well, then I'll get a girlfriend. That doesn't fill the hole. Maybe I'll get promoted. That doesn't fill it. Then maybe I'll get another girlfriend, and on and on and on it goes. And that's just it's a different form of addiction of trying to fill that hole. So if you want to get down into the deep parts of what is addiction, addiction is trying to fill a hole that's in you. Unfortunately, you're filling it in the wrong spot.
Exactly. And it's also about, it fills that hole, but how do you fill that hole? You got to find a purpose.
Well, the opposite of, because you're depressed in some form or fashion, and what's the opposite of depression? It's not hope, it's purpose. It's purpose. So how do you make the jump? Well, cocaine is an easier one because, okay,
Look, I'll tell you right now, me and Brandon Novak had this conversation when I was interviewing him. He was in Jackass.
Yeah, I know who he is. I know exactly who he is. Westchester boy.
Yeah, I was at his house in Fairmount, and I interviewed him, and he was just, for us, cocaine, it wasn't even like the high of the drug. It was just to keep drinking. It just went along with the booze. It just kept the party flowing. I never woke up and was like, oh my God, I need cocaine. It was just when I started drinking and I started getting buzzed up, I needed to get that cocaine in me. That's just how I was.
But how were you getting your money to buy these drugs?
I always worked. I hustled on the street though too a lot, and did some stuff that I'm not proud of. Like, I could say this now because of the statute of limitations though, but I mean we would take trucks of mattresses and all that and sell them all around town in King's College, Wilkes College, fill them all up. I'm not going to mention any names. We had inside connections and all that.
You would go down to King of Prussia, get the truck.
Yeah, kick it right.
Yeah, right.
But we had it down to a system though, and there was always a way for us though to find money, for me anyway, to find money for somehow. But the thing is, I never ripped anyone off. Except for the last time, which we'll get into. Didn't rip him off. It was a drug dealer. I punched him in the face and took his stuff and ran. But then it ended up being fake. But that's for another story. But this was because it was the day before I was going in the re-op for the last time, and I'm like, I need to get high. I don't have money, so I had Monopoly money. He knew, and he's like, boom. Before he could say anything, I just bam, and I feel terrible about that. And it is what it is. Even though it was a drug dealer selling fentanyl, I don't have that street code when it comes to fentanyl. I think people should be, blast it right in the face, and they're selling poison. You're just killing people. But
there was one of the cartels that actually said if you get caught cutting our product with fentanyl, they'll kill you and your family.
Good, they should.
Well, you think about it, the drug dealers are businessmen, right? They're on Fortune 500 companies. And if your product is killing people, nobody's going to buy your product, you're going to lose money.
And that's what I just never understood though about that when that started coming around. Like everyone's just dropping dead. And then, you get someone who's sober for, let's say, whatever amount of time, their tolerance is all the way, though, down. And then they try that again. Let's say they were doing heroin or whatever, but it's fentanyl. They're dead. I know people who just did a little line of it, thought it was cocaine. Boom, dead.
So it's actually, with the fentanyl epidemic, now it actually helps me with my kids. I talk to my kids about drugs. I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I never did drugs. I'm not going to tell you that. I am going to tell you that the drugs that I did when I was younger are vastly different than the drugs you're going to get now.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was getting. You don't. Most of the time it was fake weed or something like that. You don't know what you're getting now.
It's scary.
It's really scary. And here's the other thing. I've never met one person who's on the street who's truly addicted, who's like the worst addict you could possibly, not a functional addict, a bad addict, who ever started with, like, let's say they're hooked on methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Well, they never started with methamphetamine.
No.
They started with usually marijuana.
Oh, yeah, usually like from growing up wise. Yeah, absolutely. Or booze. Either or. Booze or
booze is actually a better one to start with booze. Then you're looking for the next, you think marijuana. And but I also tell my kids this. I have an addictive personality, you have an addictive personality, but you've met other people who can do cocaine once and never do it again.
Yeah.
Okay. It's amazing to me. And I told my kids, I said, every time that you ingest something unnatural like drugs into your system, you're rolling the dice, you're gambling. There are people who can do it once and never do it again. And then there are other people who do it once and are hooked for a lifetime or hooked until they die. And I said, here's the problem. You don't know which one you are. So are you really going to roll the dice by taking that chance? And then I look at my kids and I said, you got to understand, when I was a kid, I didn't have a future. You got futures, So what was your outlook on, like, you're in this how old were you when you're like a full-blown addict?
Well, I mean, I was because we jumped ahead. I was a full-blown alcoholic because I played in bands and all that stuff. So in all of my 20s, I was a full-blown alcoholic and up until 35.
All right, so...
And I tried some pain pills and stuff, but was never... And, went through a little bit of the oxy phase, but never, like, got hooked on that. It was just compared to what happened my last go-around when the pandemic hit.
Oh, I did. I got hooked. So I had shoulder surgery, right? They gave me hydromorphine. And they said, take it as prescribed every 4 hours. So I did. And then they gave me oxys. And they said, take it as prescribed. No matter what, I had to take a pill every 4 hours. I think it was every 4 hours. So I did it. I did exactly what the doctor told me. 3 months goes by. I got to go back to work. I can't go back to work in my police job being on opiates. So I tried. I said, you know what? I got to quit this. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I lay down at night and I'm scratching and I was dope sick.
Oh, the snake on the bed. You're on the bed like a snake with your back and your legs and
awful. It was absolutely.
I get chills thinking about it.
It was absolutely awful. And the only thing that got me through it was I had Sonatas, the sleeping pills.
Okay.
And I took that and it just knocked me out. And it took me 3 days though.
Yeah.
And I was the most uncomfortable, miserable prick that I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, but that took you 3 days though. But I mean, how did you deal though with the guy? See, everyone thinks after the oil change is done, once it's out, you're good. What about your mind mentally?
So
you were taking it prescribed though for an injury, so that's kind of when you were taking them, then you weren't looking them for the high as much. You were actually taking them for the pain.
Right, but here's the problem: when you stop taking them, the pain receptors come alive all at once, and that normal pain that you can bear becomes 10 times worse.
Yeah.
But you also, so here's what it did. Here's for me, it scared the hell out of me. I realized that this is what withdrawals from heroin feel like. All right, it scared me that I was able to get addicted that easy to that stuff. And it made me, I'm like, dude, I threw them all away. I'm like, no. Like, and I remembered that feeling of being sick. It's the worst feeling in the world, and I never went back there.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's when, and then if you want to throw the fentanyl aspect on it, it's that like times 10. It's so scary. It's just, I'm just so grateful I got out of that, because a lot of people don't. And
so how are the people around you in your 20s? Your father there? Is your mother around?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So though your parents are there, they're watching you, and I didn't
live though with them though. So like I was all like, I mean, they see me, like I would just stop in the house here and there and this and that though. But
they knew. I guarantee they knew something was up.
Yeah. They tell me to this day that they couldn't sleep for 20 years because I smashed up a lot of cars, DUIs, the whole nine, all that stuff.
And we all think our parents are stupid, but they're not.
No.
What did you ever get a window into they said they couldn't sleep for 20 years, but how are they trying to help you at all?
See, I think we get mad, just like with my ex-fiance when I was with fentanyl, like, whenever though, like they would bring something up, I would bark at them real like, cause you're embarrassed. So it's like, you don't want to like talk about it. So they're like, are you sure? Like, you're all right? Or they'd say something like, you need help. And I would like yell at them and like, which to this day I look back and I'm like, what am I doing screaming at my parents? But I mean, we're a shell of ourselves, man. When we're hooked on certain stuff, we really are. I'm not making excuses for myself. I did that. I was, but at the same time, they absolutely knew, but they just didn't know though to the degree.
Did they lose trust in you at all?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Did you ever take something out of the house to try to sell it or anything like that?
No, the only thing and even my best friend on guitar, if you ever see on the Instagram, AJ, who has the studio, who I play with, he's like, man, one thing though I will say about you is that you never ripped off your friends, you never ripped anyone off, and you always just pawned your own stuff, which like my music equipment and stuff like that.
Stuff that really brought you joy, like real joy.
Yeah. I look around at equipment now, I'm like I can't even fathom that I did that. Yeah. It's so crazy how far gone though you are, Kevin.
Well, I saw that with heroin. I used to go and work out with a young guy. He didn't have a father. He was 16 years old. I used to bring him into the gym and we get him a workout. And I would talk to his mother all the time, just make sure he's staying on the straight and narrow. I lost track of him.
Yeah.
Until one day I go into work and say, hey, listen, this kid says he knows you. We picked him up for heroin. And it's this kid. And they said his name, but his first name was always abbreviated to me with 2 initials. So I don't think I ever knew what his real first name was. So it's him. And I was like, what's going on? Well, then I called his mother and his mother said, yeah, I had to move and I couldn't tell him where I moved to because when he was living there, I used to have to sleep on my purse so he wouldn't take money to go score. And I'm thinking to myself, God, that is awful. That like, how bad's it got to be for a mother to turn her back on her son and move and not tell him where he is? That's how bad the addictive personality is. You lose total trust in your baby, And I'm a father of 2 boys, and I can't even fathom that. But I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with other families, and I don't know. And you try to hold on, thinking that corner will turn, but. Sometimes it just never turns.
Well, and every time, though, when I come by the house, though, like, with my mom, I'd go upstairs and use the bathroom, she'd take her purse with her. Like, Novak said this publicly. His mother put a bell on her purse.
You saved them from themselves, because how many parents, I also know parents who would give their kids X amount of dollars, because they knew they were going to buy drugs, but it's better they give them the money.
So they don't go trying to rob it and do this and that, though. Buying? No way. I remember the last time, I was as sick as it could be, and I was begging. I'm like, I'm going in. She's 100% Irish, Catholic, was going to be a nun before she met my father, strict, as toughest lady around. My friends are afraid of her to this day. And nope, she wasn't playing that game. She wouldn't even give me something like a Suboxone just to make me feel good till I got in there. She was like, nope, I will never buy my son drugs.
So talk to me a little bit about fentanyl. So you get clean. Right, you get clean off of what? Cocaine, alcohol. You get
in 2015. I remember. Yeah, we played our last show with Winter Hill, and it was last time I took a sip of booze, and then I'm clean. So I'm out in Philadelphia, and no, excuse me, I got clean in Wilkes-Barre. And that's when, if you saw my Instagram, it's like the second clip. There's an interview with me on WBRE. That's when I started the Loomis show in 2017, and that was that was just like off booze, off cocaine, off oxy, off, like I told you, I always loved the pain pills and stuff like that, but I was more alcohol. And at this time, I got clean, everything was going good, but all I was doing though was trying to play God, helping others, and I wasn't looking at into myself.
You were trying to fill that. You were still trying to fill a hole, but you were trying to do it when you weren't ready to reach out to somebody else.
I wasn't even like doing work on myself. It was more of a white knuckle. I'm clean, so let me preach to you and this and that. And then there was a time where I lied about though being clean, and and it was a complete fraud. I'm not afraid to admit that now. Listen, I'm a God-fearing man these days, and I could scam you maybe I could scam whoever, but can't scam God. He knows our hearts. And
this is very true.
Yeah. And so it was just very, it's so weird looking back though at it, because I don't know if you go through this, like, do you ever just look back and just be like, man, how, why was I doing that every day?
So the way it was put to me recently by a friend of mine in Missouri, I passively tried to kill myself for 20 years. I did. I passively tried to kill myself for 20 years. I did the riskiest behavior, and I was like you. I was trying to fill that hole that was in here, and thinking that the risky behavior will give you a little bit of thrill, a little bit of jump, a little of this. It never works. Same thing with drugs. Give you just a little bit of high, close the hole up for a small portion of time, but that hole, guess what? It opens up wider the more sober you get, and that's why you need more drugs.
And the more that you're taking, though, to fill that hole, then, like you just said, it just gets bigger and bigger. And then what happened, though, was I was lying to people like, yeah, no, I'm still sober. And this is when I started dabbling in the pills. Now, pills don't cost money. But after a while, you start losing money and you realize, oh, heroin and stuff like that's cheaper. And you get just as high and stuff. And that's what happened. And when the lockdown happened is when and I was engaged, had a nice house up in Dallas, Pennsylvania, had a great job, and I just went overboard. And then I was actually at that point, I remember I used to get on my hands and knees and pray to God to take me. Like I wanted him to kill me. And I wasn't even doing it to get high anymore. It was to maintain.
Well, that's what George Carlin said. George Carlin said when you initially start doing drugs, it's like 99% pleasure, 1% pain. Maybe you get a hangover, or banged up a little bit. And by the time you're done, it's 99% pain and 1% pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
That seesaw is completely the other way. And I always believe that because I've seen it happen over time until finally you're just done. You're just done. I want you to just tell me, I have no experience with fentanyl. Okay, fentanyl started to become more prevalent. I was already retired.
I wanted it, though, to be heroin, but it just happened to be fentanyl. But hey, whatever.
What's the high? What type of high do you get from fentanyl?
It's terrible. You do it, and you're just nodded out, and you'll wake up, and you just want to chain smoke cigarettes. And yeah, it feels like when you get out of surgery. Yeah, it feels good, but after a while, though, you build a tolerance. And like I said, I was just maintaining. But the high of it is, it's so hard to explain, because like once you do it, you're out. It's just, you're not existent. You're just out. But you feel, though, I'm not going to lie, you feel incredible when you could remember how you feel. But it's just vicious, man, because then 3 hours later, you need it again. And that sickness is a whole other ballgame than just normal dope sickness. I mean, I'm talking about hallucinations, Tourette's, screaming out. I remember if I had my guns at my house the one night, I absolutely would have blown my head off. I didn't want to hang myself. I'm the type of guy, if I'm going to kill myself, it has to be quick. So I don't want to hang myself, because if my neck doesn't snap, and I don't mean to sound so dark, but that's what was going through my mind. And
that's very common with suicide.
Yeah.
So it's very, very common with suicide, because people who are suicidal, please don't take this the wrong way, because I felt this way, I felt like a coward because I wanted it to be as quick and painless as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, it's a weird situation.
Don't be a coward. That's not you don't be a coward. I mean, that's
you're about to do something that arguably take the most balls ever to harm yourself, yet you don't want it to be painful. All right. So while you have balls, you have none because you want it to be as quick and painless as possible.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is though where I knew though, at least though, that I had though a heart because, and I learned this while in addiction, of course I have a heart now, but I'm saying while in addiction, I was like thinking to myself, what am I, a sociopath? Cause like you just lose all senses. But my fiance, I would always like, if I went out and tried to get, I would be like, come on, it's got to be quick, this and that. And when I told other people that in like rehab, they were like, you just didn't like just like walk out or whatever. No, I was still trying to sneak out, still trying to get back. And when you're in that big of addiction, usually people don't care. But I was still worried about getting back home to her. I still had a house. I was still maintaining. I still had the cars and all that. But then eventually though, everything though just though fell off the wheels. And
So she didn't know?
no, she knew. And then at first I lied and said, oh, I'm taking Suboxones. I'm trying to get off of them. So, she went a little overboard at first and then talked to me because it took me 2 days to build up the courage just to tell her. And then after that, she started finding stuff around the house, some paraphernalia type stuff. And I started saying that it was for steroids, thinking that would be good. Oh, no, it's just for steroids that I'm taking, because I was actually taking Sustanon.
Sustanon, yeah.
Yeah, Sustanon. So like I would take like 0.5 of that, and I worked out all the time. Like that's the weird thing about me. I would still like if I got high and felt good, like I would still like work out with the ab roll or this and that. But like I was always worried though about my sexual activity because when you're on that, you're little Loomis not coming up. I'm just being honest.
You're having a pasta party in the bedroom.
Yeah. So the Sustanon, no, I would, that was, so in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm really not lying, even though that I don't want to get too dark, but the syringes are just two completely separate though things anyway. One's way bigger than the other, but she wasn't very well educated. She got very well educated and she found out and still though stuck though by me though for as long as she could. And then we just both realized that if I was going to get sober afterwards, that we had to distance ourselves from each other and I had to start my life completely over.
You got to raise that house to the ground. But so it's something you said that was interesting to me because my friend Bobby, who's had problems with alcohol, you got to be, in order to truly get sober, you have to be willing to lose everything in your life and be totally selfish for this portion because in the end it's going to be better for everybody else around you. And that moment, do you remember what that moment was when you said, I got to be willing to get rid of everything in my life in order to get sober and return as Loomis, as the person I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, it's funny. So my buddy Rich Janoff told me, he goes, read a book called Memoirs of a Suicide. And I'm not like usually into like, the medium psychic type stuff, but when I was reading this book, it's a book about when someone committed suicide but they didn't die, but they saw part of the afterlife. It was exactly like it lined up exactly what I thought happens to us. Like your viewers might think I'm nuts, but I think right now we're all at a test because why do we get all this wisdom when we get so much older and then we just die? I think this is almost like a training session for something else that's afterwards. And when I read those exact words though in this book, I had this feeling come over me where a spiritual type, like natural high that was better than any drug high that believe me, I'd done them all. That was better than anything. And for the first time in my life, I knew that I felt safe. And I absolutely knew without a shadow of a doubt that there's definitely a power greater. I didn't know what it was, but the way I felt, Kevin, like my feet weren't on the ground. Like my head was touching the ceiling. Like like it was from when I was reading this because it's I can't, it's so hard to explain, but it was just a safety net. And then right then and there, I'm like, I have to handle this. And the last time that I went in, it was just a detox, just to get everything though out of me. Cause I knew I've been in treatment centers that were cost because I got scholarships and I knew, I have a lot of friends and I had a friend who owned a rehab where they look like celebrity rehabs. I got sober in the junkiest rehab. And I'm going to tell people this. You could go to the nicest, fanciest rehab, whatever. You ain't going to get sober till you're ready and you want to. And that moment really, really hit me. And that's since then going on 3.5 years now without touching a thing.
I'm going to tell you what happened to you, Eric. Because you said you don't know what happened to you. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened to you. You experienced a miracle. That's what you experienced. You experienced a miracle, that feeling, that thing that grabs your heart and squeezes and injects love into your heart, injects that positive feeling. Like, no, where
I was floating.
your whole life you're living in this shadow. You're thinking you're not good enough. You need this stuff. Well, something just reached in and made you whole.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I think we're all looking in our lives, and it takes us a long time often to be whole, especially coming from, like, my childhood was really bad, but I never felt whole. And then one day something helped me feel whole. And that's when changes start happening.
Yeah. So you know that feeling I'm talking about. I know your story from when you were on my show. So it was almost kind of like, did you see the episode of Joe Rogan when Mel Gibson was talking to him?
Oh, it's wonderful.
And how he said, oh my God, and how he explained how it's a miracle because I'm, drugs, alcohol, the fact that I don't use, like, that alone right there. And that's hard to tell someone else who doesn't use drugs. I guess like they can't pick up on that. But when you're addicted, as you know, as I know, you're right. It's a miracle. The way I live my life, it's a miracle I'm even here. But there was something happened to me.
So with an addict who changes their life like that, you witness this miracle. You're given a second shot at life. And I know detox. I can't imagine the pain and the hurt and the just uncomfortableness of detoxing from being on drugs for as long as you were. You're given a second chance, and it's up to you whether you use it or whether you waste it.
Well, I was given a 22nd chance, I'd say, around that point. I went to 9 rehabs in 2021.
So. Oh, that's good. Well, you want to go for the even number, the 10, right?
And I'm not saying this to be, oh, look at me. I'm saying this to be like, I'm telling you, it's when you're ready. And something just came over me that day. And I used to laugh at people about spiritual awakenings, and I used to get mad in meetings when I hear people say that. I'm like, that's BS.
I used to challenge people who were so heavily into their faith. I used to challenge them.
Yeah, I know.
Where's the Christmas tree in the manger? I used to do stupid shit like that because I was actually looking for somebody to answer. But I was also challenging people because I wanted people could have shut me up by saying one thing, and they could just say, this is what I believe. Nobody ever said that, though. They were always trying to justify it to me. Yeah. And I said, there is no justification for the way you feel. Okay? It's the way you feel. That's justification enough. So you come out with clean eyes. Tell me why this time being sober is for real.
It all stems back from that feeling I just told you about. I finally figured out that I had a spiritual awakening, and I could look you dead in the eyes as I am right now and telling you right now it is 100% a fact that there is something out there greater than ourselves. And some people might be like, oh, whatever, but there absolutely is a God and all of that. So I 100%, without a doubt, it's all stemmed from that feeling. And I knew that there was something out there. And I knew, I'm a musician, and I believe I'm an artist. I'm a creator. I lost a lot of people, Kevin. So I'm like, I was questioning, why am I having this feeling? Why am I still here? There has to be a purpose for it. I know I have talent, and I'm not saying that in a cocky, conceited way. I know it from music. I know it from, like, all my friends used to say, man, every time, and you never finish anything, but every time you put your mind to something, you're right there. And then you could, like, so I know I have that in me. But this last time, it was still saying sick and tired of being sick and tired. I used to go to bed so high and wired, Ozzy Osbourne lyric, but it's the truth. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I finally, the last times I was going in, because that stuff takes a while to get out of you, I just wanted it finally out of me. And something happened that day where I knew there was something greater out there, and I knew for some reason that I had a purpose. And it's so hard to put your finger on exactly, but I just know that I have a purpose. And I lost friend. I used to question, like, why did my best friend, Dallas, why did he, pass away when he had children? Why am I around this 40-year-old who has no children and this and that? Like, why is God sparing me? But instead of questioning it, I accepted it, and I found acceptance. And once, I just accepted it and went with it, and finally kept my mouth shut and listened to someone who knows what they are talking about and lived it. That's when I finally, where I'm at till today.
I asked that question to you because it kind of leads us into the title of this, where we're talking about trust. Your parents lost trust in you. Your friends lost trust in you. When you come out and you are finally sober, and it sounds like you were finally sober for the last time. You never have to do any of that stuff again. You have that thing inside of you filled. how did you regain trust? Because then we're going to get into these pictures sitting here that have been sitting here the whole episode, because that is this whole thing just blows my mind, because you have some people over here, and those of you who are watching are going to recognize these people. They deal in trust.
No, they're the greatest people, family right there. I love to death. They're like my second family.
But they deal in trust. So let's start with your parents. How long did it take for your parents to regain, or you to regain their trust?
So it was real aggravating. Like, like when you're done. And I remember, like, when I stopped by my mom's house or dad's house, and like they still were like not trusting me, not trying. And it's like, oh, like you just want to tell them like that day, right when you're out, believe me, I got it. But of course they're not gonna. So then I finally accepted the fact. Stop with the words, prove it with the action. And with my family now, I mean, I would say exact time frame. I'd say like after I went 1 year solid, there was trust, not full trust, but starting to come back. But then as time went on, they just saw what I was doing, the actions.
Well, trust is hard to earn, but easy to lose.
Yes. Absolutely.
It takes years to build trust, but it takes a moment to lose trust.
Yeah.
And that's always interesting to me, because it gives people who are in full-blown addiction or recently sober hope to say that with time, this stuff can happen.
Yeah.
And now we're talking, I want to get to these gentlemen over here, because let's start with the big picture in the back. Nobody would know who that is. And I know that was by design. Nobody would know who that is unless you saw The Irishman.
Or read the book I Heard You Paint Houses, which came out before.
Which I read first before the movie came out.
Well, that's my neighborhood. That whole entire book, that's why we were like, they should have filmed it in our neighborhood, because they talk about it, and that's where it took place. But
we're talking about Russell Bufalino, probably the most powerful. They wrote that book, The Quiet Don.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Probably the most powerful mob boss in the world, who was never tied to one of the families. He set up the Appalachia meeting where everybody got popped. For those of you who don't know, he's played by Joe Pesci in the movie The Irishman, and The Irishman is a work of fiction, but that's something different.
And these glasses are actually Badaz glass, Joe Pesci's line that he got from the movie. He designed these from The Irishman.
Oh, he did.
So I figured I want a pair of them. They fit perfect with what I do and with the family,
So now you are the conservator to the Bufalino family. Now, family that dealt in trust as if it was a commodity. And for some reason, they trust you, Eric Perluke, a recovering addict.
Yeah.
How the hell on God's green earth did this happen?
Okay, so Christina Bufalino, who's Joe's daughter, I known her for a long time, and she was married, though, to an old friend of mine named Lloyd. And Lloyd always liked me. He knew me. And we knew each other, me and Christina, more like from afar. Like she knew like of me, and with social media and stuff, and saw all the stuff that I was doing. And then me and her met. And now we got to remember, this is the first year of my sobriety. So when I met up with Christina, we were doing an interview, and I don't want to really get into details on that, though, because there's a little beef going on, which Joe wouldn't mind me bringing up, about another book that came out that whatever. But someone came to that interview, broke it up, whatever. How I earned their trust is by, I talk to them every day. I'm with them every day. They know, they also, which I'm not going to get into detail with, though, they also dealt with an addiction situation in their family that I'm not going to get into detail on.
They didn't make you burn a saint in your hand, did you?
No, nothing like that at all. Nothing like that. No. But and here's the thing that I really want to say about them. For example, this plaque here, I mean, even my father used to say, Russell, he was man of the year. He, because he couldn't have kids, him and his wife, Carrie, all the stuff that he did for our community and the jobs that he gave people. It's just,
well, the 24/7 gangster doesn't exist, and this is one of the biggest misnomers in the mafia world. I know everybody's fascinated by the mafia. I grew up around all these guys. These guys who were in, and you knew that they were in, they were also little league coaches. They were at dance recitals. They showed up to high school graduations. Their fathers, their parents, they are average people who, when they go earn money a certain way.
Yes.
So you go in there and.
But let me just correct you quick. Russell, though, wasn't a parent. Him and Carrie couldn't have kids. And the money, what he did for children, that's why he got man of the year.
So he was a parent adjacent. Okay, what I'm saying is that they're normal people who have a life, who have an earning capacity they have a way of differentiating their minds. And what I've always learned, and is take somebody like Phil Leonetti in my neighborhood. Okay, so Phil would have been successful if he was a landscaper. And Phil was a landscaper after he went into witness protection, and he was successful at that, owned a big landscaping company. He would have been successful no matter what he did. Russell Bufalino, from what I've read, I didn't know the man, but from what I read, he would have been a successful insurance salesman.
Anything that he would into, yeah.
Because these people have that in them. They chose to go the alternate route. So you meet the Bufalino family. So explain to who the other gentleman is.
All right, and this is his cousin, though, Angelo Bufalino, who is, you know, if you look in the family tree, they consider him a soldier, but Angelo really, though, which, I mean, he was, you know, he was a gangster, but he was just with Russ. After Russ was gone in 94, Angelo was done. He was just a very loyal family. It was like basically, and there's a big age gap. So Russ always looked at Ange like his kid. And even in these letters here, which I can't get exact, but these are from the Irishman, Frank Sheeran. And
to Russell?
To Angelo.
To Angelo, okay.
Yeah, no, because Russell wanted it. Yeah,
do you mind if I take a look?
No, you could take a look, absolutely. But you just
does anybody want to know Frank Sheeran's address? Because I got it right here.
No, that was actually when he was in Sandstone, Minnesota, doing time.
Yeah. Oh, this is from prison.
Yes, and he's writing to Russell. Writing to Angelo because Russell was also away at the same time.
I know you can't see that from the camera, but it says Frank Sheeran right there.
So Russell was away, Frank was away, and Russell wanted things going through Angelo while they were away. And that's what one of these letters says. And that's as much as I could get into because we have NDAs involved with them because we're working on a project documentary. So, but I just wanted to show you though. And like I said, pictures from the league. That's actually Joe right there, all the way to the left. And that was during the Italian Civil Rights League. And I have pictures inside, the suitcase, even with him next to Tony Bennett. They used to come to our area.
Well, you got to check out your social media. So your social media has a lot of the Bufalino page.
Bufalino Family, yes. I run that with them, yes.
Okay, so that's got a lot of these great pictures. So if you want to go check it out, please go on the Bufalino Family. And it's on Instagram and it's on Facebook too, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes. And what do we got over there?
This is a belt buckle for Italian Civil Rights League. And actually, Joe Bufalino told me, though, while I was coming on the podcast, because he knew this, though, we wanted to give you, this is actually one of the original, this was Russell's, in his collection. It's a captain's pin. And there was three pins where you had your normal pin. That was just for like anyone that just wanted to help out. Then you had, if you actually worked though for them, like if you were vice president, treasurer, or whatever, that's the captain's pin right there. So
Joe said I could.
Joe absolutely said though that you could absolutely though have that.
So there's something that this reminds me of. So
that's a piece of history right there.
So in the movie The Irishman,
yeah,
I know it happened a little different. Like I said, The Irishman's a work of fiction, but this button is actually in that movie.
Yeah.
Because Russell's wearing it on his lapel.
But not that one, though. The one that they remade that looks like that one.
Okay.
But you know what I'm saying.
They has a pin like this on his lapel, and Joe Gallo.
Yeah, idea.
Goes up to him and says, "You believe in that shit?" And he points to the pin. So that's the pin right there. And this is gonna have an honored place on this show because this is a big thing for me. Yeah. Like I understand I trust me, I fully understand the gravity of what this is. And to have this in my possession, I will treat it with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
Because I understand these guys. These guys are trying to earn for their families.
Yeah.
Misguided. Okay? Misguided. But that's how they learn. That's how they earn for their family. But I do know that Russell himself, from what I've read, is probably he did it right.
Exactly. I was going to say that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm friends with the family, though. He wasn't a psycho. He didn't recruit anyone from his neighborhood, or his family was completely different. And
well, you never heard of him. You would have never heard of Russell Bufalino, or very few people would have ever known who Russell Bufalino was had it not been for that movie, The Irishman. Okay?
Exactly.
And that's the way it was supposed to be. That's the way it was set up until you got like John Gotti coming up, who pretty much destroyed the Mafia because he always had to be out in front.
Mm.
But you had people like him who were pulling the strings, like that the Godfather thing, pulling the strings. He's the guy. he's the guy on top pulling the strings.
Yeah, well, these are the two movie chairs. That's Cappy and his underboss James Asico sitting on the set of The Godfather. On the back of the chair says Russell Bufalino, head engineer, James Asico, the other engineer. So Russell was on set. Marlon.
Didn't Joe Colombo require them to be on set?
Everyone thinks that it's Colombo. Also, you got to realize the guy that played the Sinatra character, Al Martino, he was like best friends though with Angelo, and Russ got him the part. And so the story though goes that the offer, I'll give you an offer you can't refuse, that actually came though from Russ. Russ was on that set the whole time.
That's crazy. So I know Gianni Russo. I question a lot of Gianni Russo, who played Carlo.
Yeah, you should.
He seems to be like the Forrest Gump of the mafia world. He was everywhere. He banged Marilyn Monroe, and he was Frank Costello's errand boy.
Entertaining as hell, though.
Yeah, it is. So it's Hollywood. What is it? The Hollywood Don or something. There's a book he had.
Yeah,
and I read it. And if you read his book, you're like, well, damn, they got to make a movie about you. But it's just too much. Too much.
Too much fabrication.
It's way too much.
Yeah.
And he was saying that the reason he got the part as Carlo is because he was the only person that could say the word guinea, because they took the word guinea out of everything, but it was after Columbo was shot, and that's the only reason he said it, because he calls Connie a guinea bitch.
Yeah.
And he talks about that. I've heard him talk about that, and I'm like,
that's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. Russell Bufalino was the one who was on that set every day. If you read Marlon Brando's autobiography, he explains everything. Right in there. Yeah.
So he mentions Russell.
What's funny though too, if you Google it, it says Joe Bufalino, and Joe, who I talked to, he always he would always break balls like with his family, like, yeah, I was the one that was talking to Brando and stuff, but Brando called Russ Joe, and and Russell was in his trailer like every day, during that. The Russell Bufalino, what people don't understand was you have the 5 families, and then you have a guy like Russell Bufalino. They would bring him in like an elder statesman, and if they had problems.
He was like the consigliere for the whole commission.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for 2 brothers named the Lattori brothers back in the day, then with informants, and no one would really know. But eventually, though, they would find out though about him. But I just want to let you know, in our area, it was when we grew up, everyone was like, we think he might be connected, but we're not sure. He included my father and stuff. And then though, when everything really came out, it was like, wow, like the power wise.
So the town I worked in, the town I was a cop in, we knew certain guys were connected. Right? They were great residents. I'm going to tell you why they were great residents, because they never brought their shit home. Mm-hmm. They never, ever brought their shit home. And if we were out on a road job, they'd bring us water. They'd say, hey, do you need anything? You want a bite to eat? They were kind because they wanted their homes to be their sanctuary. That's where they go to get away from all that madness and then do all the stuff in another place. So that makes perfect sense, right? And that's what the old school gangsters would do.
Where I live, it's 2 hours from New York City exactly, and 2 hours from Philly. So
Russ, right in the middle.
No, but it was perfect for him. He didn't want to be in the limelight. And I don't know if you saw that video. You could even tell Santo Volpe, who was the boss before Russ, they did like Barbera was a successor whose house was at Appalachian, but afterwards. But you see Santo Volpe's mausoleum, it's bigger than Sam Giancana's, and then Russell. Mausoleum's like one of the ones on the wall in the bottom right-hand corner. Even in death, he lives quietly.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to be in that spotlight.
Well, make sure you pass my gratitude on to Joe.
I absolutely will.
Because I don't take gifts very lightly, especially a gift something like this.
That's rare, yeah.
This is really cool, and I do appreciate it. So this project you got working on with the Bufalinos. When are you looking for that to be released? What's going on? You want to give us a little insight on it?
My father, he ended up getting stage 4 colon cancer. That put a damper on things. Some other people involved with the project had some health problems, though, who are doing better, though, now. So now we're back running up in production in May. We want to get it out either winter of 2025 or winter of 2026, which would be January or February. But projects take time. It's just like when you're in a band, everyone has to be on the same page. So once production's in May, and we already have a bunch of stuff already recorded. All the B-roll footage is done. All of that. Trailer should be out, though, by, I would say, July. And we want to get it. Winter time's the best, though, to get those projects out when people are home and stuff. But this is going to be more than just telling people, oh, the gangster, this and that. Of course, that's going to be in there without a shadow of a doubt. But we also want to explain, though, how good, though, these gentlemen did in our area, what they did for people.
You want to give people a window into what it's like, what a real gangster, not the sensationalized one that's
Yeah.
out on every freaking podcast now.
Yeah.
We want to give a window into, what was this man like? If I walked into a burger shop, a diner,
Yeah.
and I met him and I sat down and I had a cup of coffee with him, what would we talk about?
Nice, from what Joe told me, just normal, nice. Didn't have to, show that he was a gangster.
Talk about cars, talk about the weather, talk about the.
He probably asked how you doing. And that's what he did though. So there's a story though. The two newlyweds that moved in next door to him, he ends up putting a roof though on their house though without them even knowing it because they're just newlyweds. That's just how he was. Kids would hit. He had a baseball field behind his house. Kids would hit home runs. He'd walk outside, hand them $1, $5. That's the type of guy though that he was. And I'm not trying to say just one good deed washes whatever. But in our area, in our community, the Bufalino family they gave so many people jobs. I mean, Jimmy Hoffa Russ was his main guy, so with the Teamsters and stuff. So, I mean, including Frank Sheeran. I mean, when Russ met Frank, because Russ is a mechanic, and helped Frank, that part of the Irishman's true. And for everyone out there, don't listen to John Pedisi. Russell lost his 2 fingers from, and I have the book right there, from his deportation trials from an engine block coming down. He loved to work on cars. He was a fantastic mechanic.
I'm going to tell you something about Jimmy Hoffa. So my grandfather was a truck driver in World War II. When he got out, he became a truck driver, and he became a Teamster. You could never say an unkind word about Jimmy Hoffa to my grandfather, and I'll tell you why. So my grandfather, before he was a Teamster, before the Teamsters came in there and unionized, he was working 80 hours a week for $50. Eat his lunch on the road, work himself to the bone, trying to support his family. Jimmy Hoffa comes in, they unionize, he becomes a Teamster. All of a sudden, he's working 40 hours a week, making $50. The same money that he was making working double.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to spend some time at home with his family. So he adored Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa did great things for his lifestyle. And Jimmy Hoffa did that a lot. But you'll find a lot of union bosses who were criminal, taking money. They always kept their workers happy. Because if the workers are happy, they get to go and play and do whatever they want to do.
Exactly. So, and that's how it was, though. But I just want to go back, though, to your trust, though, question. And I think even Joe Bufalino, the Bufalino family know this. I would walk off a cliff for that man. He's done so much, though, for me. And before I would ever do anything this trustful or anything like that, I'd walk out. It just unequivocally can't happen.
So we are coming to the end of this thing here, and you got to make me one promise. When this project comes out, you got to let me know, and we'll blast it out all over our social media so we can get as much eyes on it as possible. And I'm very proud to have you in here, coming from where you were to where you are now, taking on this big project. The Loomis show is fantastic. I've never seen anybody put so much work and passion into what they do. And I can only look forward to where you're going to go, because you have the drive, you have the personality, you are real, you're not underhanded. We speak about this stuff all the time. Yeah. And I'm just ultra proud that you're a friend now.
No, I mean, I'm ultra proud, man, that I met you. And can I just say one last thing about Russ?
Absolutely.
Russ was the what? Jimmy would have been gone right after Tony Provenzano got out of prison.
Because he hit him in prison, right?
Yeah. Russ, and they didn't like each other. They'd been in the Teamsters together for a while. Russell was the one that kept him alive as long as he could, but Jimmy just wouldn't listen. Yeah. So Russell wasn't some just crazy, like Tommy Two Guns gangster. He did it the old school way. I just wanted to get that out of there.
Yeah, it's amazing how much power that guy had.
Yeah.
So, Eric, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and why don't you throw out all your social media and tell us where we can find the Loomis show?
Okay, so you just type in The Loomis Show, LOOMISSHOW, The Loomis Show on YouTube. You could subscribe there. Ring the bell to get notified. I'm also just just Loomis Show on Instagram. And then you could also follow me and the Bufalino family at the Bufalino Family on Instagram as well.
Well, soon you'll have a website too.
Well, exactly. And it's actually theloomishow.com.
That's fantastic.
I got the domain for that.
That's fantastic.
Thanks to this gentleman right here.
I said, crap, that's $1 million moniker right there. As I started this show off, I'm going to end this show. You've gone through, you've hit the depths of places you don't want to go, and you felt some real suffering. You felt the loss of trust. You felt all that stuff, and now climbing your way back up. Along the way, there are many different lessons. You've had to learn from your suffering that you went through. So your personal suffering, Eric, what has your suffering taught you?
Well, besides not going back to that life, I mean, well, number one, definitely not going back to that life. But what my suffering has taught me is that if you could get through the suffering, no matter what the suffering is, and you could push through that suffering, there's a beautiful life waiting for you on the other side. I mean, look at this.
That's the truth.
No, but I'm saying, look at this. Maybe 4 years ago, I remember I watched you. And I always remembered you in the blue studio room. And now I'm sitting in this studio, though, with you. It's just insane how life, though, works that way. And there's a beautiful life waiting you. I kind of think a lot of people, not just addiction-wise, you got to suffer a little bit as a man. You got to fall down you got to fail. And you got to get back up and keep going. Like, a lot of times, I'll fall on my face with something, but that's not going to deter me. Now, there's not one successful person out there, Kevin, that just had a smooth ride.
Life moves fast.
Exactly.
Okay, so I did an Instagram Live tonight before you came in, and it was very wise words, because this is what Sober Eyes gives you. Very wise words spoken by a man in 1986, and he said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you're going to miss it, said by Ferris Bueller. And I think that plays into your story. With Sober Eyes, you're able to look around and say, hey, listen, it's a good place, man. I want to be here.
I think even if if it was even right next to me, I would just be like, no. And there has been stuff next to me in the past 3.5 years because I worked with treatment centers and I'd find stuff and this and that. It's just out of me. Ever since that experience I told you about in the house, something happened.
That's when you know you're in real recovery.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your work with the Bufalinos, and I look forward to all this good stuff that you're gonna have happen.
I can't thank you enough for having me as well, and continue our friendship. And you're just a genuine soul, Kevin, and I really do appreciate you.
Well, I think we got a lot to do together.
Absolutely.
So that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Trust with Eric Perluke, Loomis, and let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Living in a shadow is definitely not easy. Addicts try to fill that hole that's deep inside them. This is all just a training ground, but most importantly, we are all looking to be whole. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.